failed the people of Afghanistan?
Mr. President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
So what is the level of confidence that they have that it will not collapse?
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place. The question is, will they generate the kind of cohesion to do it? It's not a question of whether they have the capacity. They have the capacity. They have the forces. They have the equipment. The question is, will they do it? And I want to make clear what I made clear to Ghani, that we are not going to walk away and not sustain their ability to maintain that force. We are. We're going to also work to make sure we help them in terms of everything from food necessities and other things in the region. But there is not a conclusion that, in fact, they cannot defeat the Taliban. I believe the only way there's going to be, this is now Joe Biden, not the intelligence community, the only way there's ultimately going to be peace and security in Afghanistan is that they work out a modus vivendi with the Taliban and they make a judgment as to how they can make peace. And the likelihood there's going to be one unified government in Afghanistan controlling the whole country is highly unlikely.
Mr. President, thank you. But we have talked to your own top general in Afghanistan, General Scott Miller. He told ABC News the conditions are so concerning at this point that it could result in a civil war. So if Kabul falls to the Taliban, what will the United States do about it?
Look, you've said two things. One, that if it could result in a civil war, that's different than the Taliban succeeding, number one. Number two, the question of what will be done is going to implicate the entire region as well. There's a number of countries that have a grave concern about what's going to happen in Afghanistan relative to their security. The question is, how much of a threat to the United States of America and to our allies is whatever results in terms of a government or an agreement? That's when that judgment will be made.
Breaking news this morning out of Afghanistan. Sources say the U.S. Is now completely pulling out all U.S. personnel from the U.S. Embassy in Kabul over the next 72 hours. That is different from what we heard on Thursday from the president, who said some personnel would be pulled out.
Yeah, right now, as the Taliban is closing in on Kabul, the evacuation of U.S. Embassy personnel is well underway. A U.S. official says the goal is to get them out by Tuesday, if not sooner. Right now, you're looking at video shot by CNN that appears to show U.S. helicopters flying above Kabul, possibly carrying U.S. personnel.
CNN's Clarissa Ward is live in Kabul, Afghanistan. Clarissa, help us understand what's happening there, and good morning.
Good morning, Christy. There's a lot of moving parts here. You mentioned the evacuations of U.S. Embassy personnel. I mean, we have just heard a nonstop stream of choppers all morning going back and forth from the embassy to the airport. We also saw an Apache gunship accompanying several Chinooks. That gives you a sense, I think, of just how tense things are here. And that's because the Taliban are now very much outside the gates of Kabul. We heard earlier a statement from Zabiullah Mujahid, who is the spokesperson for the Taliban. He said that they are not going to enter the city violently, that they want to enter peacefully. He urged people to stay at home, not to try to flee. He said that there would be a blanket amnesty, basically, for anyone who had worked with the government or with security forces, as long as they did not try to fight the Taliban. And we also are being led to believe that there are sort of ongoing last-minute talks between the Taliban, between the government of Ashraf Ghani, the Afghan president, to try to come up with some kind of an interim government, a sort of peaceful transferal of power. We heard from Afghanistan's defense minister, again, urging people to not panic, saying that the city of Kabul is still very much under control, that defenses are strong, and that negotiations are ongoing to come to a peaceful conclusion. But I can tell you, Christy, that that message is not being embraced on the streets of the capital. It has been incredibly chaotic here this morning, with people just desperately trying to get out of the city. The streets have been choked with traffic, long lines outside the passport office. Everybody frantically worried about what will happen when Taliban fighters do enter the capital, as it appears may be happening in the coming hours or days, depending on how those talks go. We just don't know. Christy, Boris?
Clarissa Ward, live for us there. You and the crew take good care there. Thank you so much, Clarissa. So we want to continue this conversation here. The Taliban, as she said, at the gates of Kabul. In response to the rapid gains by the Taliban, President Biden, as we said, now authorized an additional 1,000 U.S. troops to assist with efforts. Bill Roggio is the managing editor of the Long War Journal.